Today we want to talk about, or I want to teach listening. I want to start with that. Hopefully there's thousands of people watching me right now. Hopefully. And you're all listening, okay? Now, what are you listening with? What do you hear? I'm waiting for an answer. No, I'm joking. Okay, what do you hear? What are you listening with? And what I'm going to talk about is especially for actors, because we don't learn to listen with the way we listen in real life. What I'm saying is most actors only listen to their cue word, which means when they're going to start speaking. They hear their text, they hear their line, and voila, they have to start speaking. But in real life, because that's what I keep telling you that I'm teaching, how do we truly listen? Test yourself sometimes. Test yourself when you're in a taxi cab and the driver starts talking to you. How do you listen? Test yourself when your teacher starts talking to you. How do you listen? Or your mother, or your boyfriend. Each time somebody's talking to you, are you listening the same way? I don't think so. I think each time something happens to you, that the listening becomes different. So let me just start again from how do we listen? Okay, first of all, we know that we listen with our ears. We listen for the text. We listen for the words. But more importantly, what do we listen with? Or what do we listen for? The energy of how the person is speaking, not always the words. If your best friend comes into a room and you say, "Hi, how are you?" and she says, "Beseda," she says, "Good." And you hear from the energy that she's not Beseda, that she's not good, and you say, "What happened?" So you're not listening to the words, you're listening to your friend's energy. You're listening to your partner's energy. So that's one thing we're listening for. Second thing we're listening with is, except for the ears, we're listening with our eyes. Why? Many times, okay, we're watching somebody talking, and while we're watching them, we forget to listen with our ears even. So our eyes show the body language of the person talking, if they're touching themselves, if they're making fists when they're talking, okay, what happens to their eyes, what happens to their mouth. Many times I teach lawyers how to interview people by their facial body languages, okay? So the lawyer has to listen more with his eyes than with his ears. So again, we listen with our ears, we listen with our eyes. The third thing we listen with is our thoughts or our memories. When somebody talks about their father, immediately something happens to your memory, to your mind about your father. If somebody talks about their boyfriend leaving them or their boyfriend buying them flowers or what happened, suddenly we remember our boyfriend. And many times when they begin talking, we again stop listening because we're so busy with our own thoughts. So we listen with our ears, we listen with our eyes, we listen with our thoughts. And of course, we always listen with our feelings. Now, how do we feel about the person speaking? Do we admire them? Do we think they're, I don't want to use the word assholes, but do we think they're assholes? Okay, do we respect them? Many times we let people talk and we stop listening because our feelings are not in tune with them. So great actors listen with all of this and not just for the cue word of the text. It takes time, it takes experience. But this is one of the most important things because in cinema, many times the listener is in the frame and not the talker. The audience sees what the listener is feeling, what the listener is thinking, not the talker. That's how important listening is in cinema. In theater, it's less because we're not able to see the listener in a close-up. So, listening is not as easy as everybody thinks. Plus, there's another way of listening. And that's the most important one. is we listen differently when it's about us. We listen differently when we know that we're going to get bikoret, we're going to get reviewed, somebody that we love is talking about us. We're listening more with our regesh there, more with our ears there, more with everything. If somebody says to you, wow, you're terrible, okay, in your mind, you might remember other times people said you're terrible, or a fool. You might say, wow, this person thinks I'm wonderful. Okay? So we have all these styles of listening, and I think as actors we have to work really hard to put that through in cinema.